This black hole habitat that we're sitting in now is 750 acres of riparian habitat. It was all flat farm ground in from 1990 and before. So in 1991, 1992, Dino, before I was around, uh, took part of it out of commercial farm production and started the very beginnings of turning this into a habitat. The goal initially at the start was to try and give back to nature. We are here currently on Brack are basically in the epicenter of the sandhill cranes. And the sandhill cranes, along with a lot of the other birds that migrate down here, have been doing so for many, many, many thousands and thousands of years. But we wanted to try and make a place that was welcoming to migratory birds coming down, but more importantly, establishing a local population of birds to stick around here year round. And we started growing rice here on Brack Track probably a few years after that. I think 1995 or 96 was our first years of growing rice. Dino pioneered rice in the Delta. Rice has been grown in California for a long time. No one had planted it down here in the way that Dino started. We plant it in dry ground uh, into the moisture with a grain drill, as opposed to the guys up in the Sac Valley that are flying on their seed into flooded or semi-flooded fields. Um, by doing that here, number one, we can get really good stands or really good germination of our seed. If we flew it on like those guys did up in Sac, what would happen is, and we know this because we that was one of the first things that we tried when we were growing rice down here, was the winds that we have push all that rice seed over to one corner of the field. And in fact, that first year that we had tried it, 3/4 of the field was bald, no rice, no germination, and one part had all the seed that we had planted. And you can only be so deep with a rice seed. You can only plant it about an inch and a half. That's kind of the sweet spot where you want to be, maybe an inch and a quarter into the moisture. The reason for growing rice down here, you know, besides it having a higher economic return than now and all the way through, as opposed to corn, that was number one. But secondarily, there's no doubt that the rice itself uh, was curbing subsidence. Subsidence is the number one threat to the delta. What makes the delta so unique is its peat soil, fertile, very organic soil. So growing rice here was economically the better option, uh, without a doubt the best thing to control subsidence in our peat soils, which is what makes this place so unique. Any farmer uh, or person that is interested in increasing their station in life, whether you are a conservationist or enjoy wildlife or whatever, the pure economic facts of growing rice in the long term, in the long run, absolutely makes more sense than any other grain alternative that you could grow. The main thing to always keep in mind or to understand is that people eat rice. Corn, the vast majority of the corn grown in the United States and here in the Delta is feed corn. Now, what that means is all that corn that we're growing is feed to make beef, to make pork, to make poultry, whatever that is. And because people eat rice and animals eat corn, when the economy is worse or when people make less money, they are hesitant to spend money on the meat that costs the most. And so fluctuations in the broader economy tend to have a greater fluctuation on the grain market. So the grain market is constantly moving up and down in relation to the broader economy. The difference is that people eat rice. It's not a feed grain. So rice tends to be much more stable. Now, if you grow rice, if you can, let's use a figure, if you can make 80 sacks to the acre, and on average, over the last 10 years, our rice price is probably around 20 bucks. Okay, so it's 5 tons for corn, 200 bucks a ton is $1,000. Okay, 80 sacks of rice per acre times 20 bucks is $1,600. Now, I am just talking very general figures, and we have the numbers to talk more specifically about it. But just that, the 10-year historical average, the difference is $1,000 versus $1,600 that you're getting back per acre. Now, there's always a little bit of a difference. Rice, you have to spend a little bit more on herbicides than you do with corn. But even so, that difference between those 10-year averages does not represent the difference of increased costs in order to grow rice. The Delta itself is such a unique place to grow rice because our water requirements are much different than they are up in the Sac Valley, where farmers have to pay for their water. Here in the Delta, whether you're in the North, Central, or South Delta, what you pay for is the water, the electricity that it costs to pump that water in or out. There's a misconception that rice uses a lot of water, and that misconception is present because it's flooded during the summer months. When you're flooding up a rice field, essentially all you are doing is filling up that profile with water. But that water doesn't go down into an aquifer. It is at the limit or at the level of the water table. So really, the only water that you are using when you're growing rice is the evapotranspiration rate of the plant itself. Far and away the best option for a farmer that is looking to maximize the water that he has available to him here in the Delta. The goal is to manage this wetlands with the wildlife in mind at the first and foremost. So the animals and plants that we grow out here are complementary to each other, and the goal is to try and make it as great a habitat as possible for them, to increase the amount of balance and population that we have here, increasing the wildlife productivity, decreasing subsidence, and increasing with rice economic productivity